Hey everybody, this is Daryl with Motivation Through Recovery, and today we're going to talk about the trigger games and 5 triggers and how to avoid them. 5 triggers and how to avoid them. You know, you got to understand that triggers are something that we have that kind of leads us back into the wrong direction. You can have a trigger that can lead you back to thinking about using again, which eventually leads into relapse and things of that nature. So we got to be able to identify our triggers so we don't go back to the things that so easily trip us up and cause us to go back into our addiction and hurt ourselves all over again. So today we're going to talk about the trigger games and 5 triggers and how to avoid them. And we're going to do this week by week. So we're going to talk about the first one today, but I'll give you all 5 right up front so you know exactly the direction we're going in. Okay. So the first trigger of the trigger games we have is called the stress trigger. Okay, the stress trigger. You have the stress trigger out there. Then the second one you have is the trigger of people, places, and things. That's the trigger game of the people, places, and things. Then you got your emotional game triggers. That's number 3, your emotional game triggers. And then you have the the addiction reminder triggers. That's number 4. And then the last one we're going to cover is going to be the holiday and celebration triggers. Those are the triggers that we're going to be talking about. Now, you probably wonder, or you may be wondering about why I picked these 5. Well, the reason why I picked these 5 is that these have a tendency to be the ones that I've come across that people have the most difficulty with. So you may have other triggers out there. You may even have some triggers that you don't even know that you have, but something you need to investigate. So if you don't have any of these triggers, or maybe you have some other triggers, use some of these tactics that we're going to talk about to help you get through the trigger points. Okay. So like I said, we'll talk about that first one today, which is the stress trigger, okay, or what I call the stress game. Okay, the stress game is something that, you know, whatever stressors that may come in your life. Maybe it was a bad breakup, maybe a divorce, maybe it's job loss, maybe something that whether you lack of money, whatever the case may be. Whatever your triggers are in this area, and whatever gives you the stress that promotes you to go into your trigger. The most important thing that you need to do is to recognize the trigger. Recognize it for what it is. Assess the trigger. How bad is it really? Okay? But don't let yourself get into a place where that trigger causes you to go back, relapse, and use. So, for example, I remember that a number of years ago, and we're talking about a long time ago, I was a sales manager at a company, and our numbers were down, and my boss was getting on me, and you know how it is, all crap rolls downhill. So if he was getting on me, I was getting on my sales team. And as I was getting on my sales team and trying to get them to motivate them, encourage them to do it, it just became more and more stressful because the numbers weren't there. And I just get called in his office on a regular basis, and our numbers just weren't there. So it added stress into my life. So I remember one time I was getting ready to go home. I probably had about 5 years of sobriety under my belt at the time. And I was getting ready to go home. And as I got ready to go home, I decided to stop at the liquor store. I had so much stress on me that I just wanted to get out of this pain and just forget about the day, you know? So I went to the liquor store, I bought a bottle of Jack Daniels, and I went home. I went home, got out of my clothes, put on my glad rags, as I call them, you know, my comfortable clothes, put on some sad music, a little Lionel Richie. Hello, is it me you're searching for? You know, that kind of thing going on. So I was just setting the mood for me to go and have this massive relapse because I was done. I couldn't take it anymore. The stress was too much for me to handle. So I sat there and I put that bottle of Jack on literally on my TV console. It tells you how long ago this was, on my TV console. And I sat across in my chair looking at this bottle. And I must have looked at this bottle for about an hour and a half. And after I looked at the bottle, I finally got to a place where something in me just snapped. And I looked at the bottle and I started arguing, or better yet, I started yelling at the bottle. Okay, it wasn't an argument because the bottle wasn't yelling back. But I started yelling at the bottle. And when I started yelling at that bottle, I started saying things like, oh, come on, you supposed to be cunning, baffling, and powerful. You know, come on, crack that cap open. Come on, jump in my mouth. Let me see what you're going to do. Let's get this thing over with. Let's get it done right now. And after sitting there and watching that bottle and saying the things I said, I realized something. I realized the fact that that bottle never moved. It never said anything. It never did anything. And that's when I came to the realization that even in my most stressful moment, I realized that the one that was cunning, baffling, and powerful was me. So I had the opportunity to change my situation and let my stress get to me. So instead, I got up, I picked up that bottle, I cracked the cap open, I walked in my bathroom and poured all of it down the drain. Man, that was a lot of money. I poured it all down the drain and then took that bottle outside with me, threw it up in a dumpster, and then I began to just walk and walk. And I just had a nice walk. I began to calm myself down. I started to say some affirmations over myself as I was walking. And all of a sudden, things didn't seem that bad anymore. And I found a new way to deal with my stress. So just because you have stress doesn't mean that you have to turn around and you have to destroy your life. You have to relapse. Find other ways. Find other methods on which you can get rid of that stress. How do you get rid of your stress? How do you manage your stress when those times when you want to go use, but you don't? What tactics have you used? Drop a comment below and let us know what that is. And remember, like, share, and subscribe to this channel and share it with people who need to have this information so they can make the next right decision themselves. I'm Deryl with Motivation Through Recovery. And remember, you are somebody and you do matter.